All right, welcome back to the series on OrgRef, the new features in version 3. And what I'm going to talk about today is non-LaTeX exports. So OrgRef was originally designed specifically for making PDFs of technical and scientific documents with bibliographies and cross-references, but it also has had some support before for exporting to other things like HTML. But in version 2, it was sort of a special arrangement for each export that was handcrafted and not very flexible. So I decided to get rid of all of those, all that kind of formatting, and switch over to the citeproc from that uses CSL. So this citation processor is now a package that you can install in Emacs, and it uses these CSL files that you can download from like this website here. So let's have a look at that. Here is the website for it, and you can look here. This shows you there's lots of them. There's like 5,300 different styles that you can choose from that are responsible for how your citations are formatted, how the bibliography is formatted. And all we have to do is click on one of these. Let's say you could click on the source, and you can see this one probably doesn't work actually. It doesn't have very much stuff in it. But let's find one maybe for nature. Here, if you click on the source, that has all of this style information in XML. And this is what the Emacs citeproc library uses to do all the formatting. So that is what I'm going to talk about today and show you what it looks like for different formats and how it works so that you understand what it does and how it's different from what OrgCite does and whether OrgCite is the right solution for you or OrgRef. All right, so let's talk about just a basic example. So out of the box, a lot of the defaults are specified, and the default style is going to be Chicago author date 16th edition. So if you don't specify anything, it's going to use this CSL file. And if you've installed OrgRef from GitHub, this is automatically included in it. I'm not positive that Melpa installations include this or not. So if that turns out to be an issue, just post an issue on the OrgRef site, and I'll try to figure out how to resolve it. But this should be stored in a directory called citeproc, and OrgRef should know how to get it. So what I wanted to do is just show you a couple of examples. Here's a typical citation. Here's a textual citation, a parenthetical citation, a number, a year. Here are some citations that have locators in them. So that's this number at the end implies a page, but you could also specify a chapter or a line or a figure, for example, in the citation language or in these citation links here. And depending on the style, it may or may not support exactly what the locator is. So not every style supports every locator. For example, equations and tables might not be defined in that style, and so we'll see how these get rendered. All right, here are a couple with notes, pre-notes, and post-notes, and here are multiple citations with a pre-note and a post-note. And then finally we can have common notes like global prefix, global suffix, along with pre-notes and post-notes on the individual ones. So these will all be handled by the CSL that we'll get to. All right, I didn't show you last time, but one way that's easy to select these is, again, today I'll use the Hydra inserter. And here, if I have this bound to a convenient key, these are all the links that I can insert. I might just press the left bracket here. That will give me one of these entries. And now if I want to choose the kind of citation type I want, I just type Control-U and then Enter, and I can pick one of these, and it will automatically insert it. And these are red hydras, so you can keep adding them if you want, or any other key will make it exit. All right, so I forgot to show that yesterday, and I thought I'd show it today. And also I forgot yesterday I noticed there wasn't something quite right about how we insert references. So here to insert a reference, I choose maybe the right bracket here for cross-reference. And here we get the labels. And let's say I want to, this is a radio target. Let's say I want to do G1 here, and I can just do Control U again and choose, all right, let's try that again. It's like live debugging. Let me do it the regular way. This should give me a way to choose, whichever one of these things that I want. So I'm not sure that works from the Hydra yet. I'll have to check it out. In technical writing, there's a rule of thumb. The best way to find a typo is to submit it to, for review, and like within 30 seconds, you'll see a typo. The code analog is do a live demo, and you'll find out where all your bugs are. Okay, these cross-references aren't going to be handled by CSL. I'm going to talk about a reference processor later, in a couple of days probably, that will illustrate how these things are done. So let's just move down to here. Also, I will talk about natmove, which is another preprocessor that will move these kinds of citations to the right-hand side of punctuation. And that's something that pretty commonly happens for me when I use superscript styles. You want the superscripted reference to be on the right-hand side of punctuation and parentheses, and things like that. But I'll talk about that one also in the next couple of days. All right, so the most important thing to remember about how CSL is used here is that it's done with a preprocessing hook. So what happens is there's a function that works on a copy of your org file before it is exported, and it goes through and replaces all of the citations with the CSL text that it generates, and then it replaces the bibliography link with the CSL generated bibliography. So that has to happen in a preprocessing hook because it takes preprocessing to go through the article or through your document and replace everything in the order that it needs to be, and then it gets exported through the usual process. And that's the critical difference between how OrgRef uses CSL and how OrgCite in Org 9.5 uses their citations. Because the citations in OrgCite in Org 9.5 are top-level org elements, it can handle all of that through the regular export mechanism. But since I use links, these links are the same as any other link, and you don't just export it at export time. We have to go through and replace them. We have to use the preprocessing hook to do that. So to make that simple, what I have done is wrap a bunch of these in little commands. So we'll look at how this is done in the code. But essentially, if you only have citations to worry about, you can just export as usual like this. This temporarily binds the preprocessing hook to the right function, and then you just run it like Control-C, Control-E, R, capital O. So let's try that. And this will open an org buffer. So I don't save it to an org file so we don't overwrite this, but just to show you exactly what's happening is all of the citations are getting replaced by this text. And let's see if I go up to org and let's view the hyperlinks. Let's look literal links. This is just making fuzzy links that point to the citeproc bib item 2 and has this description so it looks nice. And these are the citeproc bib items 2. So if you click on this, it actually jumps your cursor down here. And then the bibliography link here has been formatted by CSL. So that just gives you an idea of exactly what's happened. All these site links on the left are being replaced by fuzzy links that are formatted from the CSL on the right. And it doesn't touch any of these refs, but you can see how it manages to do the pretext, pre-notes, post-notes. When you do the year, it's only giving you 2015. Let me go back to descriptive links. So the year, the number isn't quite right. It is not always perfectly perfectly translated between these LaTeX commands and the citeproc commands. Down here you can see, this one has chapter, line, line. I don't know why this style doesn't always put a P in front for page. Some styles do, some styles don't. And then same way down here, we don't always see equation labels. The regular cite is here. The textual cite is here. Parenthetical cites are in parentheses, so everything looks pretty nice. Let's look at it in HTML. So this looks pretty good at the end. You have nicely formatted things that are here. Here we have the year. Here we have parentheses. Again, the number doesn't really make sense in this case because we're not using a numbered reference style. And the year works okay. We have all of these things that we see down here. And we didn't use natmove in this case, so none of these citations are moved, but we have a really nicely formatted bibliography down here at the bottom. All right, so that's pretty nice. I'll skip ASCII. It looks more or less like org. Let's check out ODT. This is the Office document, open document template, and it's sort of like Word. And so here we see we get, again, really nice formatted entries, and I can click on these and they go to the end where you see this really nice looking bibliography. So this is like the closest I've seen to getting a practical Word document out of org mode with cross-references and references. It's pretty nice. The cross-references are even better. Down here you don't see figure 1.7.2. I can't remember how good it is with that, and that just disappeared because OpenOffice frequently crashes for me. You can also do kind of standalone LaTeX and PDF. This one is convenient here if you want to drop it into an email. If I click on this, it just exports everything and gives me like a decently formatted email in a message ready to send someone. May be helpful. And then let's look at what happens with LaTeX. So why would you want to do this in LaTeX? The main reason would be to have a totally standalone tex file that doesn't require a bibtex file. So you can see in here we have introduced all these citeproc items, and this eventually comes down to the end where we have these kind of hyper tags that are formatted bibliography. And if we run the export to PDF, then I'm pretty sure this will open a reasonable looking PDF that has okay, some issues in it. I'm not sure what the 2 is. Or why my mouse is spinning. So it looks like we might have some issues to work out on what the 2s are, but we have like a reasonably good looking format down here. All right, so real life thing. Again, I don't know what the 2 is. That probably is related to, let's go back and look at the LaTeX and see. Oh, I see. Maybe this is not getting formatted quite right, or exported quite right. But you see the sort of the idea. All right, there are some fine tuning that you can do. We could use natmove here. We could use the CSL preprocessing processor. This is the function that is doing all of the work up here. And this is the way you would do fine tuning. But I'm going to save natmove and refproc for another day to talk about. All right, so that's all out of the box. If you want to customize it, it's not that difficult. You use these keywords, CSL style, and you use the name of a CSL file. And this file either has to exist in the current directory or at the relative path to the current directory, or it has to be an absolute path, or you could use one of the ones that is defined in org-site CSL styles for that. And so this one is let's look at what kinds of things are in here. This is in citeproc. CSL styles has these file names in it. So APA 5th edition is just getting pulled out of the citeproc CSL styles directory of ORGraph. And then you can also choose a locale. So it defaults to US English, and those are defined in the CSL styles, or sorry, CSL locales. And I only have one in there because I wouldn't know if any other locale was working the right way or not. But in principle, you can use other non-English locales here. And then if the style supports it, you can see what the non-English page numbers or something like that are. All right, so otherwise this document is the same. So let's just look at this one in HTML. So this is also APA style that has this name like this. And here we have all of the links that go down to our nicely formatted bibliography. And the main point of this example is really using these keywords to customize it. All right, and then the last one I want to talk about is using an absolute path. So maybe you want to use the nature style that uses superscripts, and you just, here I have this file sitting on my desktop, and so we just put an absolute path to it. And let's scroll down and look at this one in HTML. You see we have nice superscripts like this, and we have numbered a numbered bibliography. I'm still not sure why we have apparently a line break here. There's nothing in the HTML that indicates that it should be doing that. I think it's just some kind of like CSS styling that makes it happen. If we look at the org file, then it just has a numbered list like this, and you can see these are all replaced by superscripts. All right, so let's see, is there anything else I wanted to really emphasize in here? We'll come back to this again another day. All right, so I think it's worth, maybe I'll take a few minutes to go through how this is organized. So what this uses the citeproc library for making the citations. There are several backends that it can use, and these don't map exactly onto the backends used for in org mode. So we just map these like markdown to the plain version, ASCII goes to plain, and if we choose ODT for our backend, it goes to org ODT, which is the CSL backend. Then let's kind of scroll through. Here are some of the labels, the position locator labels you can use. And if you put any of these things in the locator, they will get normalized to the full name here that is expected by the CSL library, citeproc library. And not all of these are supported in every style, so there will be some learning curve associated with that. And there's a whole URL on that locator specification that you can view here. All right, then when we're doing the pre-processing, we get a list of all the sites. So we just parse the whole buffer and then get all of the org-ref site types, and that gives us a list. And then for each one of these links, we create the CSL data for it. And that's done here, where we just need to return eventually this data structure, this A list of all these things that get put into the CSL processor, the site processor. And then we have a function that processes the buffer. So this one gets the backend for the particular export you're looking at. It gets the style file, the locale file. It creates a citation processor here. Then it will get the items from the bibliography. So org-ref find bibliography is a command that tells you what bib files are being used. It gets a locale, and then we get a list of all the links here. And then for each link, we loop over those and collect the site data and all of the prefixes. and that eventually returns a list of, let's see, these are all still in the let statement. Then we go backwards through the buffer to replace each link with what comes out of the rendered citations. So up here we have rendered citations. And this little piece here is what happens in the preprocessing. So if you choose an HTML backend, then we replace the link with the @HTML. This is an inline HTML fragment, or inline LaTeX fragment, or inline ODT fragment. And those are coming from the citeproc directly. And then afterwards, since these are the inline versions, they will just get exported as if they were raw LaTeX or raw ODT code. Okay, then so this is just a loop that goes through in reverse so that we don't change the positions of any of the links as we go, and we just replace each link with a string that is coming from the site processor, and then we similarly replace the bibliography link. So if it is this also maps over all of the links. If it finds a bibliography link, then it replaces that link with the formatted rendered bibliography, unless it's a no bibliography link, and then it replaces it with an empty string. All right, so that's actually all that happens. It's a lot of code, but you loop through the links, render them with the citation processor, go through the buffer and replace all the links with those rendered citations, and replace the bibliography with the rendered bibliography. And then it continues as if it's a regular org mode export from there. All right, so then for those export commands, I have this generic command here that takes a backend as an argument and then all the other optional things. It gets the file name, has a couple of extensions that it knows about. It chooses an export name, and then what we do is export with a buffer copy, then process the buffer according to the backend, and then depending on the backend, because ODT turned out to be a little bit special, then we either run this command, which runs the org ODT export to ODT command, or for everything else, we just export the file to the backend. So these are the ways that I define those. And the rest of these just use that orgref export to command to create the specific HTML, ASCII, PDF, LaTeX, ODT, and then as org goes to a buffer. If you make a message, then it opens a compose mail and inserts the content of that export process. And then we define these kind of derived backends for orgref so that you can just do Control-C, Control-E, R, and then one of these letters. And then there is just one very short preprocessed buffer that you would add to a hook. So normally, if you were fine-tuning the way you want things done so that you could have a series of these preprocessing functions, then you just have a function like this that does export before parsing hook and adds this function to it. So that's really it. And again, that's the biggest difference between the way orgref manages CSL citations and the way org-cite does it. Orgref has to do the preprocessing step, and the org-cite does not. All right, so that brings me to the end here. So there are a few more preprocessors that I will talk about in the next couple of days. One of them is natmove for moving citations to the right-hand side of punctuation. One will be a reference processor, cross-reference processor, that brings the features of LaTeX into non-LaTeX exports for cross-references. There's another BBL from natbib and bibtech as a citation processor that's an alternative to CSL. And I am probably going to build a glossary acronym preprocessor to bring the glossary and acronym capability that works really well in LaTeX to other exports as well. All right, so that is it for ORGreph and CSL. And if you find any errors, you should leave it in the chat on the video or file an issue on GitHub so that I can take a look at it. All right, thanks for listening, and next time we'll talk about another feature in ORGreph. See you next time.